Welcome back to Stop, Drop, and Roll. I'm Jen Caceres, your host. First things first, I'm going to ask you to please like and subscribe, Stop, Drop, and Roll. This is episode 50. I am so excited that you're joining me today, and I am as thrilled as one can be to talk about learning and development. Learning and development, also known as L&D, not labor and delivery, something that I've done for many years through coaching, creating content, delivering leadership opportunities, the plethora of different programs. I want to talk about what it really is and why it matters so much. Why it's not just a buzzword, it's not just something that big companies are doing, and how we might be overthinking what learning and development really is, because it doesn't have to be super expensive. It doesn't have to be a huge policy or procedure that we're rolling out. And it doesn't have to be so much change that people avoid it. I really want to focus on the importance of learning because learning is growing, especially with Stop, Drop, and Roll, because if we stop and we really pause and we think about, okay, why am I doing this? Not just what do I want to do with people and how do I want them to work or how do I want them to show up, but why? And why is it so important for people to grow? I'll share a quick quote with you. Jack Welch, famous for saying, an organization's ability to learn and translate that learning into action rapidly is the ultimate competitive advantage. So if you are just one person in your organization or you're a million people in your organization and you're global, it doesn't matter if you are spending a ton of money or what you're doing. You don't have to go through all of that. And I would tell you that, a few years ago, maybe about 5 years ago, when I was deep in the heart of creating content and creating procedures and working on really expensive HR platforms that would create a course and kick it out to the world, and people would click on it and then, yay, we're compliant. I would say, yes, that's what we have to do. And after stopping and thinking about this for several years now and working with organizations and individuals, growth can show up in so many different ways. Now, I'm not talking about compliance as far as safety, regulated laws, and those types of things. Don't stop doing that. Make it more fun because I've been behind some of that stuff and it's rather boring. But I'm going to tell you the regular learning and development and leadership and how to communicate and those things, they don't have to cost you money, a lot of time, and painful change. So I want to take a moment to stop and really consider the topic. Like I said, it is one of those things that can be blown out of proportion. Most leaders at the top, let's just be honest, we kind of think we got this all figured out. I don't need to develop anymore. I don't really know what else I could possibly learn because I've been doing this for, however many years. And I'm here to prove you wrong because there are new things every single day. If you hadn't heard of this little thing called AI, that is changing the way that we work. Plus, we have the next generation of talent, and they are bringing so much with them that, yes, we do need to learn, whether it's specifically for our industry, our product, whatever it is that we're selling or doing, but just to enhance the diversity of thought, to enhance the experience in your workplace and the culture that you want to create. So what does L&D really look like at your workplace? Is it people taking workshops? Is it online learning? Is everybody behind a screen just clicking, or have they created like that little chicken with the nose that goes down to click the mouse while they're off, doing laundry? Really, I'm serious though. What does learning and development look like? Do you have some coaching? Do you have some mentoring? And yes, all of it encompasses learning and development. Ask yourself the question, why do you want to do it? And do you want to do it? Learning and development doesn't have to be, again, this formal process. We are so accustomed, and this is where I want to pay attention to what we've outgrown in business as we are working together, but we're so accustomed to listening to what everybody else does. Oh, well, our competitor bought that $450,000 platform, so we must need that to keep our people engaged. Or, well, in order to do performance reviews at the end of the year, I probably need to know what courses Sally has taken and where she's not compliant. We're stuck in this over commanding, controlling, you need to do this thing to develop when at the end of the day, what are we doing to develop as leaders? And what does that really look like? How effective is it for someone to sit at a computer screen and click through something that they don't enjoy versus hands on, talking, experience, shadowing, mentoring? Just think about how you want to define it and what does that really look like. You have permission to be the first person to make the change. You do not have to be like everybody else, and you definitely don't have to keep doing what you've always done because it's just the way we do it. As you're stopped and you're paused, who's doing L&D? Is this an HR function? Is this individual team members? Is this up to leadership? Is it a combo of everything? It's really important to define who's doing it. Because if nobody knows who's responsible, it's definitely not getting done. Also, how will you know if it's working? How are you going to gauge people actually developing as leaders or better communicators or salespeople, linesmen, whatever your job and industry is? So as we stop and gain clarity, I want you to ask yourself those questions. What does it actually look like? Why do you want to do it? Who is responsible? And how are you going to know if it's working? The next thing, why does it matter? Why is this even important? And who cares, right? I just want to do my job and go home and make a pie or go to my kids' football game. It's important because of these statistics. 94% of employees say that they would stay longer at a company if they invested in their development. 94%. Turnover costs can be 1 to 1.5 times a person's annual salary. So those people that are leaving, because we didn't go through this exercise and look at what is L&D, why is it important, how am I going to gauge it, they left. I will tell you that this is especially true for the younger generation. As your Gen Zs are coming in or already there and taking charge, they have expectations. And why? Why do they care? Why do they have these expectations? Because they are on YouTube all the time, learning things. It's engaging, it's stimulating, it allows them to look at things in a different way. And those of us who've been around a little bit longer, we're not used to that. Yeah, we'll go to YouTube and figure out how to clean the grout on our bathtub or how to put a dog bed together, maybe, right? But we aren't necessarily doing the same things that the younger generation is doing. And we have to be aware of that because those are their needs, and that's how we engage them. Companies with higher engagement and higher learning cultures have up to 20 to 30% more profit. So why should I care about this? Because you're losing money if you're not developing your people. According to Gallup, lack of growth is a top 3 reason that people quit. Now, remember, people define growth in different ways. One person might think, well, growth to me is climbing the ladder. Another person might think, well, growth to me is learning a new job. And another person might think that growth comes in the form of pay. So just be aware, again, cognizant of your people. You got to know your people. You got to ask them, How do you want to grow? What does growth look like to you? Why is it important to you? And then you can start doing some of the back work and actually figuring it out. I've worked with a couple of different companies who have defined learning and development very different. It goes back to my previous example. One of the things that we get caught up in oftentimes is that we think that learning and development is just one thing. Because if you've worked in an organization that has defined it very clearly, then that's what it is. Oh, it's that portal that you go to and you take those classes online and you check all the boxes so you're good. For other people, oh, that's going to that seminar at the end of the year where all the leaders go and we listen to the speaker, we get a book, it's signed, and then we go home. It's just defined so differently. So I want to make sure that in the seat that you're sitting in, you're thinking about these different things because one size does not fit all. And especially for those people who are new to your organization or for younger talent, they may have a clean slate. They don't know what learning and development is. At one organization, maybe they had to pay for everything, which I don't recommend. Then they're not going to do it. Another organization, everything was paid for, but it was all in-house, very cookie cutter, very boring, click through. And at another, maybe it was you had an in-house trainer who was doing things in person and you had follow-ups and you were measuring the effectiveness of what people were learning. So again, broad, think of this very broadly. And this comes back to how do we define it? What do we want it to look like? And you might be able to save yourself some money. The next thing is to drop. And what I'd like to do here is consider what is learning and development and what it's not. So, what it is not just checking a box in a learning management system for somebody in HR at a desk. It is not. That is not learning and development. That is compliance. It is not just sending somebody to another seminar and never following up with them. It's not, oh, Bob, you need to go to that sales thing at the end of the month. Yeah. You send Bob, it costs you $3,000, and Bob comes back and all he has is sunburn. Okay. It is not something that you outsource fully, and leadership has no ownership of it. If you are doing learning and development and growing, your leadership has to be a part of that. So if you're outsourcing that and it looks like you're just using somebody external, they're good, I've paid them, my people seem engaged, whatever, and you're moving on, you're not actually getting everything that you're paying for because you then, the leader, are dropping the ball. It is also not this giant, expensive HR software implementation, this learning management system where now we have 5 new employees that have to create content and create graphics and make sure all of our colors are the same for branding. And yes, that's wonderful, but you don't need to do that. That's not learning and development. That's branding. It's not a bad thing. You can do it, but you don't have to do it. So how do you figure out what's happening, what you're supposed to be doing if you don't really know? And I know that there are some HR people listening right now, and you're going, I don't like Jen. I don't like the way that she's talking about our people and our systems and, kind of our bread and butter. And that's fine. That's fair. What I'd really like to encourage people to do is to ask other people in your industry, not just other HR people, but go. If you are in the industry of manufacturing widgets, go to other widget manufacturers and find out how they develop their people. If you are in construction, if you are in retail, if you are in food service, whatever you're doing, ask the people that are in those industries and be careful not to get caught up in an industry within the industry, like HR within that. Yes, tap into it, but don't stop there. Go to other leaders and ask what they're doing. You might find out that they're just relying on their HR team, but ask, find out. You can also leverage groups like mastermind groups or LinkedIn groups. I'll tell you a quick story about software, HR software that was implemented for an organization and the pros and cons. So the pros is going to look great, be very streamlined, be very professional, and be able to reach everybody in the organization. The cons, hours, actually months and months and months of training and onboarding this program, people taken away from their regular jobs to learn it. Now, I'm not saying that that's necessarily a bad thing, but at the end of the day, you got to prepare for that. Consider reflecting and observing. We're just going to combine these two today because I really want to encourage you to think leadership first. Everything you do in your organization starts at the top. It has to start at the top. If your leaders are not bought in, don't do it. That simple. I once worked at an organization where we were implementing a very expensive software to many, many people on learning and development. And when one of the top leaders got in front of a camera and addressed the entire organization, they didn't get the name right. They very clearly said, I'm not really sure what that is. And then I think at the end may have said, whatever. So it was this huge opportunity lost where we could have gotten the organization excited about it. We could have gotten people bought in, and the leader could have given some examples, but they weren't bought in. Therefore, the entire project was kind of doomed from the beginning. So, leaders, do you actually believe in a learning culture? Do you believe that learning is important? How are you leading and modeling that first? Because again, it starts at the top. Are you developing people intentionally or kind of just leaving it to chance? Well, I really hope that Bob will catch on. He's got some time, so we'll see what happens. Or I really hope that Sarah gets better at this because she's next in line. I'm hoping she'll be our next manager. So it's kind of this praying and hoping that people will actually get better. We're not intentional with that learning mindset. I want you to think about engagement because while I know that's sort of a buzzword, it's absolutely crucial that your people are engaged. But what is engagement? Engagement is people who are happy to be at work. They're rowing with the rest of the team towards a common goal. They are learning, excited to come to work and work on different projects because we're tapping into the things that they enjoy. If we find out that they're very strategic or they're very relationship driven, I'm going to put them on projects that will allow them to use those strengths that engages them. And so doing an engagement survey is something that I know it sounds extremely boring, but that also doesn't have to be very hard as long as you have some psychological safety and people feel safe to be honest with you in the organization. Now, if you talk about an engagement survey and no one wants to do it, that alone tells you some areas where you can start with, let's make people feel a little bit more safe so that they can actually be honest with us and we can make some of those appropriate changes. If you're not doing engagement surveys, you've got to start doing them. They don't have to be complicated. Ask people what's working, what's missing, and what do they need. Those three simple things, and people are giving you all of the information that you need to at least get started. What do you need? What's missing? What's working? And they'll give you that feedback as long as they feel safe to do so. You have to make it anonymous. If you have a really large organization, engagement surveys can be a little bit more difficult. Personally, I recommend the Gallup Q12. It is a 12-question survey that can be done electronically. It is anonymous as long as it's set up on the back end in a specific way. So you can rest assured that people aren't going to be able to figure out who you are, if that's a concern. That's going to give you some of that crucial information of where do you even begin when you're thinking about learning and development. When we talk about evolving, the last step in Stop, Drop, and Roll, in learning and development and everything else, it's one small step. So as you've been listening today, you've been growing. You've been hearing ideas, you've been thinking about things, you've been considering how do you define L&D? What does that look like? Maybe you've been thinking about the programs that you use, the platforms that your team interacts with, or maybe you've been considering your HR department and how effective they really are and what they're doing. So you're evolving just by listening today. I want to encourage you to do just one small step this month. And I have some ideas that you can do to move forward in the name of learning and development, in the name of leadership, and just growing as individuals, but also growing as leaders of others. The first thing you could do, and this could just be on your team, maybe we do it via Slido so that you do it anonymously on a PowerPoint presentation. You ask 3 simple questions about learning. That's your learning survey. You give it to a very small group of individuals and you get some feedback. Start there. Start small. Start with one department or one team, 20 people or less, and just start gathering data. That's one thing that you could do. Another thing you could do is start by adding, and I know we don't want to add too much, but add 15 minutes to one meeting a month with your team. Hopefully you're having team meetings, but 15 minutes where we're learning something new, whether that's tapping into people on the team and asking them to bring something to the meeting. We're kind of doing a round robin where every month one person brings something new to teach to the team that has to do with their job or what you guys are doing. Or they can go out and find a YouTube video. I don't care what it is, but you're intentional about bringing learning to the team. Define it however you want, whatever works for your culture and the diversity of thought on your team. The next thing you could do is anybody that's going to a learning event, something outside where they're going to be learning something, create a template. What did you learn? What was the topic? How are you going to implement this at work? How is it different than what we do today? What did you agree with? What did you disagree with? Ask the questions that make sense. Ask AI to help you if you need to, but create a template so that when they get back, you guys can sit down and have a conversation and you know where your $1,500 went or the 3 days that they were off for this event. You're at least holding them accountable to bringing something back tangible that they can share or put out into the group and teach others so that it's not just a one and done. The last thing I want to mention that you can do to evolve is that leaders are committing to at least one coaching session a week. Again, I know our teams are very different. They look different. And if it's just you by yourself, you could hire a coach. But working through having a coaching session, what went really well for you this week? What didn't go well for you this week? How do you think you could do things differently? What did you learn from all of that? However you want to work with that coach on the topics, but committing to one coaching session a week. Leaders, that's up to you. And if you don't know how to ask those questions or what they look like, Google it. I'm also happy to provide some answers if you want to put some questions into the comment section below the video or you want to reach out to me. It's jc@perpetualcapacity.com. If you're listening via podcast, I'm happy to answer those questions. All right, your mission after listening to episode 50, I ask you to try one small step this month. So in the next couple of weeks, pick one of these. Launch a 3-question learning survey. small group, keep it simple. Make it make sense according to your culture. Start a monthly 15-minute peer huddle or 15-minute learning session added into a meeting where you are very intentional about it. You can create a learning plan, something in the form of a template for anybody who's going out to an external learning event so that they can bring that back to you. And the last option is to commit to one coaching session a week. That's for a month. Doesn't have to be long. It can be 10 minutes long. That's 40 minutes a month on coaching. Okay. So pick one of those. That's your challenge after listening today. Tell your team, hold yourself accountable. Put it in the comments here. You can email it to me. You can find me on LinkedIn and you can let me know what that is. I'll hold you accountable if I have to. But let's find something. Let's redefine learning and development for you, for your team, for your organization, and let's start spending smart. Again, it doesn't have to be difficult. It could be as simple as starting to mentor someone or identify mentors. But we have to talk about it. We have to make it a real thing and not just leave it in the hands of HR or Sally or whoever's been tasked with it, because learning and developing people is a part of our leadership role. It's not simply, oh, so-and-so takes care of that. That is part of what we have to be doing individually every single day as leaders. I want to remind you not to be the organization that spends more money on swag than you actually do on learning, because tote bags are great, but they're not going to help your business grow. They're not going to help people evolve at all. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining me and celebrating episode 50. Again, super stoked about having this. Thank you so much for watching. Please, again, subscribe and like, and hit me up with some comments. I'd love to know what you're doing. I'd love to know how this works for you and how it made a difference in where you work and yourself as you lead others. Thank you so much. See you next time.
I hope you're feeling inspired and encouraged as you reflect, observe, listen, and evolve through whatever you need to today. Remember, true leadership starts within. For more resources, visit perpetualcapacity.com. Until next time, keep growing and leading on this journey we call life.